McConnell. I'm president of the U.S. Ukraine Foundation. It is my distinct honor and great pleasure to introduce our next, our speaker actually for the evening. When the war started in 2014, I called upon some of our friends, John Herbst, David Kramer, and the others, and we got together about what we should do and formed the Friends of Ukraine Network. When the full-scale invasion began in 2022, we said, we need to beef up our task force. We need to add some more military people. Well, there aren't very many people that intimidate me. But General Breedlove, I know, it's hard to tell now that I'm intimidated. I was intimidated. But so John reached out to General Breedlove, then we got Ben Hodges and Wesley Clark to join the effort. And they have worked tirelessly advocating for people of Ukraine, the children of Ukraine, in Washington, across the United States, and internationally. So it is my great pleasure to introduce one of Ukraine's best friends, and I'm happy to call our friend, my friend, General Philip Breedlove.
I'm going to try to do surgery up here and cut about half of this speech out. First of all, thank you to this embassy for hosting us. It's so amazing. Let's give them a hand. Our new ambassador had to leave, but to her and to the Friends of Ukraine Network and to the U.S. Ukraine Foundation, thanks for asking me up here. I'm going to let you know that my facts have been checked by both AI and humans. So I don't apologize for my facts. I will apologize for the rest of it because it's my opinion. I was the commander of NATO, the Supreme Allied Commander of NATO when Russia first invaded Crimea and then invaded the Donbass. And the last 2.5 years of my 3-year tenure were spent in rearranging NATO to be more ready for a Russian problem and in trying to find a way to help Ukraine. So I'm going to share with you some things now that are unabashedly sometimes a little rough, but I don't care. It's my turn at the podium, and I'm going to share them. So I don't want to take umbrage with anything that is said here, but I would offer that, in my opinion, this is a 12-year-long war. This is not a 4-year-long war. It's 12 years. The little green men invaded and started the invasion of Ukraine when they took and seized and then occupied Crimea in that winter from 13 to 14, the early months of 14. And then later, a few weeks later, 6 maybe, the Russian army amassed itself, crossed an internationally recognized border, and invaded the Donbass. And they've been there ever since. They now hold about 19% of sovereign Ukraine land. And I call it that because we also signed the Budapest Memorandum, and we owe it to Ukraine to stand up to our part of the memorandum. But certainly the invading nation is at fault here. And they have not only not stood up to their part of the invasion, but they have been the aggressor. Russia's war of aggression, as I said, is now 12 years old. I would offer to you that they're stalled right now. But along those 12 years, the focus of tonight is the children of Ukraine, the people of Ukraine, the families of Ukraine, and the children of Ukraine have suffered mightily for the last 12 years. And some of that because of the efforts, distinct efforts of a ministry within Russia to snatch those children from Ukraine and take them back to Russia. This is, in my opinion, a war crime, and it makes all those that perpetrate it war criminals, to include the KGB agent running the country. In that 12-year-long war, the first portion was, of course, Crimea and Donbass. And then there were about 8 years that everybody likes to try to forget, where we had what I call a warm line of contact. Russians were dying, Eastern Ukrainians were dying, and Western Ukrainians were dying, and that was not a cessation of hostilities in my mind. It was a continuation of that war. And then, of course, we talked so much about the full-scale invasion. 12 years, not 4. After the fall of the wall, and for almost 2 decades, we were trying to make a partner out of Russia. Having been a Cold War warrior starting in 1983 in my F-16, I used to call it, why are we trying to hug the bear? It became very clear later that the bear did not want to be hugged. He had other intentions. And in 2008, he amassed his army, marched across an internationally recognized border, and invaded the country of Georgia, and now still holds about 20% of that country. Familiar ring. It's clear that the bear never wanted to join our team. He never wanted to be a part of the West. Many saw this attack into Georgia as a temporary thing, and then we tried to get right on to the next step in our Western vision of bringing Russia into the Western world. How wrong we were, and how dearly we have paid for that being wrong. While we thought this was work out, it is clear now that Moscow never seriously gave thought to joining us in peace. Rather, Russia had been preparing to fight what Mr. Putin has often called a horrible wrong, the greatest calamity in Western history, when the Soviet Union fell and the Warsaw Pact dissolved. This became imminent clear when, in the beginning of the third phase of this war, the full-scale invasion, Mr. Putin gave us 2 documents to sign. Do you remember those? December of 2021, I think it was. And it was just before the full-scale invasion, and he said, sign them or else. I think the more correct translation was, sign them or there will be other means. But the fact of the matter is, we now understand that that was him saying this is going to be victory through strength. And today we are trying to find peace through strength. In essence, the documents that we did not sign would have completely reorganized the security architecture of Eastern Europe, and essentially it would have reestablished a Warsaw Pact-like organization with all the border nations that we had seen during the Warsaw Pact days. And these buffer states would be limited in their military capability to a degree that it would be really easy for Russia to reestablish control over them and set up a new way of running Europe. And during this time, and especially during this 12-year war, what we have seen is Putin masterfully coercing and forcing his will on the West through military strength and intimidation. These things, I think, bear a little bit of introspection. First of all, Russia, once considered a world superpower and maybe in the top 3 militaries in the world, have been trying to subjugate Ukraine for 12 years. 12 years a superpower has tried to subjugate Ukraine. And again, they hold about 19%, but in at least 3 major axes of attack today, Ukraine is advancing into Russian lines. Russia is backing up. One of Mr. Putin's biggest successes so far in this war has been his almost complete intimidation of the West and to some degree Washington, D.C. by the threat of tactical nuclear attack. This is what military men call reflexive control. And he's been executing this reflexive control to a very high degree. In every instance that the West considers new support to Ukraine, or if Ukraine starts to have tactical successes on the ground, Russia's either Mr. Putin or one of his top 2 or 3 begin to talk about new nuclear weapons and, oh, I sure hope we can get through this war without having to use nuclear weapons, and it's nuclear, 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 nuclear. Sadly, it works in most cases. I got in a little trouble for this the other day, but I'm going to say it one more time. I think I'm in a partisan crowd here. But I believe that if we allow tactical nuclear threats to dictate the borders of Europe today, we are effectively handing Mr. Putin a veto over every sovereign decision NATO or the European Union makes for the next 50 years. And so I'm skipping some stuff here because I want to save you some time, but let's talk about where we are today. I want to offer to you a fact. And I would offer to you that our current set of negotiators who are trying to negotiate peace for Russia obviously do not understand this fact the same way that I do. Mr. Putin never was a partner for peace in Ukraine. Mr. Putin is not now a partner for peace in Ukraine. And Mr. Putin will never be a partner for peace in Ukraine. The faster we understand that and accept that, the quicker we can get to a durable peace in the future. Additionally, today, if you are an economist, and I'm not, but I take advice from some, Mr. Putin's economy is not going well. 3 of his major entities are nearly insolvent, deeply in hard currency debt, not ruble debt. Things are not going well for Mr. Putin's military. Anybody sing out real quick, how many Americans did we lose in Vietnam? Yeah, there's a whole bunch of numbers. 58,600 is one that sticks in my mind. In 10 years, is our nation over that yet? Mr. Putin has lost, the conservative estimates now are 1.3 million horribly injured and about 40% of those dead. How can you call that winning? It's not winning in my book. So the bottom line here is now Mr. Putin really cannot win. Mr. Putin has been crashing into the Donbass for years and years and years, and Ukraine is holding. I think even he realizes now that he cannot take the Donbass. He is counting on the West, and he is counting on the United States to give him what he can't take. And we can't stand for that. To close, I'm often asked, what is it that we need to give Ukraine to end this war? And if you've ever talked to me for more than 3 minutes, you know I'm an F-16 fighter pilot. I don't brag, but I am an F-16 fighter pilot. I've spent almost my whole adult life flying the F-16. So almost everybody will say, oh, Breedlove's going to say give them more F-16s. Most are surprised that I don't even talk about a weapon at all when asked that. This is, again, my opinion, and we have some real experienced people in the room, so grade my paper. What Ukraine most needs is a clear, declarative, highly visible, very public policy statement from Western leaders and, most importantly, the U.S. president that Russia will not win this war. And that the assembled nations of the West will give Ukraine whatever is needed to ensure that Russia does not win. I got in trouble for this a couple of days ago, but I'm going to say it again too. The most lethal weapon we can give Ukraine isn't a missile. It's the end of our own hesitation. There are some really smart people in this room, and one of the ones that coaches me all the time sitting right up here in the front. And he and others have said over and over, and I say it now over and over unabashedly, that Putin will not stop. Putin will have to be stopped. I offer to go back to what I think Ukraine mostly needs, and that is, if Mr. Putin hears, if his oligarchs hear, and most importantly, if the Russian people hear that the West is going to fully support Ukraine, and then we actually begin to do it, that will be the beginning of the end of this war. The people and the nation of Ukraine have surprised the whole world. For 12 years now, they have stood toe to toe with a world superpower and held their ground. It's time for us to stand with them. Slava Ukraini.